It is question time or discussion time. If anyone has any comments or questions for the panel, we are now slow-moving targets. Yes.
If you can hear that. So Kevin O'Leary from QMS, based in Cork, but traveling in and out of the US continuously. There's a shortening of lines going on here, which is great. In other words, bridging Silicon Valley to Ireland and the universities to each other, universities to industry, and so on. In an effort to shorten the lines further, it would be interesting to see if we could examine getting some of the venture capital firms, who really are the sort of the feeding process into the innovation ideas of the entrepreneurs in Ireland, and get them to post some of the young partners to Ireland for a year at a time. It would be really interesting to see some of the VCs have people on the ground around the place. If you look at the depth of what's going on in the universities, some of the innovative ideas, unfortunately, the Irish entrepreneurial culture isn't yet reaching out far enough, fast enough to the VC community on the West Coast. Is there any sense of getting that, Bill's point about when we said it was going to be Belfast, this kind of went, yeah, I'll go for a while, that's all right. Use that to actually put some of the people on the ground and get them closer to, because I think once the Irish entrepreneurs see that activity, that access, then we're shortening lines again. Any discussion or ideas of, is that possible? Do we think it's feasible?
Go ahead,
Well,
Greg.
we've only got one venture capitalist up here.
We're staying very quiet.
But we don't want him to answer the question. Two quick comments. One is, it's a great idea, but Ireland is just one of a zillion opportunities for these young VCs to go get their feet wet. Part of the reason ITLG put an innovation center in San Jose is to give the opposite opportunity, which is to take the Irish entrepreneur and transplant them right into the center of the action. And that may be an equivalent technique to accomplish the same thing. You want them to give them that exposure to how it works, who the people are, what the system is, and then if they're successful, they can bring that back as well.
As I'll put on my venture capital hat, there is a chicken and egg that goes on in innovation, and venture capitalists go where there's innovation, and entrepreneurs go where there's venture capitalists. And until that flywheel is going bigger and faster, it's not going to happen. That's the first problem. The first problem is that there's a perception that there's not enough deals here to warrant that happening. Now, I think that there's a lot of changes that are about to happen here between enterprise equity partnering with Irish Technology Capital, and there's a lot of commotion going on behind the scenes that might make that happen, and I think ITLG is the driver of that. In the short term, I would not be optimistic that that's going to happen, that a large firm is going to move any partners here, because not a week goes by where a venture capital firm, or actually anyone on the panel, is not approached by Poland or Italy or Ohio to say, how can we recreate the Silicon Valley here? So everyone wants that group to move to another location. And as a venture capitalist, I can tell you that some of my partners think that Oakland, California is too far to go. So, so there's got to be a big change, and I think that there are a lot of machinations happening behind the scenes that between Enterprise Ireland, and there's a lot of things going on where hope springs eternal in the short term on that front.
Yeah, we had a great session at Stanford a week ago.
Yeah, that's incredible.
Yeah.
Where we had representatives of every major university in Ireland come and talk about their research programs. You had the audience, all the major Silicon Valley corporations and VCs. That's a great vehicle as well to get instantaneous exposure.
I might add that venture capital isn't the only source of funds. We frankly avoided getting money from venture capitalists. We raised money from friends and family initially, and then went right to strategic partners. And Craig mentioned Intel Capital. We raised money from Visa and GE very early in the process. So there are other sources too.
To pile on Bill's comment, if you can avoid venture capital, you should.
You have to sell. You have to sell your soul for venture capital.
You
So there's.
should. It's not, it is, that saw cuts several ways. Yes, a question in the back.
My name is John O'Donnell. I'm CEO of Manufacturing Vision. We have technology to allow semiconductor companies lower their cost of manufacture. And we already have customers in the States and Canada and Europe. But my question is, there are plenty of large US multinationals in Ireland who could be encouraged to allow technology companies in Ireland to beta test their services. So as an alternative to expecting venture capitalists to be maybe in Ireland for a certain amount of time. So is there an opportunity to encourage US multinationals to allow or maybe facilitate startups in Ireland to beta test what they have? And I think there is an opportunity for that. So I maybe might have comments on that.
Go ahead, Craig.
In the abstract, sure, but the devil's in the details. I mean, every large corporation you see has more than enough opportunities. If it has a venture capital firm like Intel Capital, it's a good vehicle. But just to go into a corporation and say, I want to beta test what I have with you, Mr. Corporation or Miss Corporation, that's a cost, that's a bother, what's the payback, etc. So it's a difficult proposition, I think, realistically, unless the firm has a arm or an organization which is specifically looking to nurture technologies which complement its own. And that's what you see the internal venture capital operations of major corporations do.
Correct.
But if you go up to lease-slip to the Intel manufacturing facility and say, hey, I'd like to come in and disrupt your manufacturing line with my new idea, I can guarantee what the answer is going to be.
The message that ITLG and all of us are delivering, more than anything, is we want you to create companies, build companies, and grow companies, and we want to help you do that. So if Intel puts jobs here, or Apple puts jobs here, or Facebook puts jobs here, that's great. That's job creation. But it's not company creation. It's not wealth creation. It's not going to build the economy. And that is our message to all of you.
Sorry, I was going to say one other thing that I think is really important. Just a few moments ago, Craig was out grilling some of the poor guys that had posters in the section where you were displaying what you're doing. And one thing that came across quite clearly is the Irish need to be really better at selling their ideas succinctly and telling you exactly what the product is, rather than waffling on about the fantastic, exciting science, which is wonderful. But if you're going to sell yourself to a venture capital company or to anyone that has money, you better tell them what the product is going to be. And I know for the biotech area, that's often a long sell, and where they're going to get their money back. And I think that's something that can be learned, that you really need to learn how to communicate more effectively, give your story, make it a good story, and let them know how they eventually are going to make money for investing in you. And I think that's lacking a bit here.
Rich, may I add a comment in here? I notice Kingsley Aiken's hiding out over there in the corner. Kingsley was CEO and president of the American Ireland Funds, or the Ireland Funds worldwide. And he became very, very expert at picking the pockets of wealthy American Irish people. I would suggest that perhaps the Ireland Funds, which is a fabulous organization residing in New York and Boston, might consider the possibility of instead directing some of those funds, or rather specifically picking the pockets of Irish Americans to set up venture capital funding specifically for use within Ireland, with payback associated with it. I think people who have fond regard for Ireland, a lot of the diaspora, probably would be quite proud to invest in something that will help their homeland and might actually make a decent return.
Great point, John. Did you write that down, Kingsley?